All right. Well, we're breaking a bit of news this morning. Councillor Tony Randle joins us now in our letter from Wellington. Wellington, welcome to you, Tony. What's the weather like in Wellington today?
It's overcast but calm.
Oh, well, so there you go. That could be it could be the national identity at the moment. Overcast but calm. Listen,
Yeah.
mate. You've just got your the Wellington City Council Crown Observer, Lindsay McKenzie, has just published, and you've sent me a copy of it. Thank you. His latest report into the Wellington City Council. I assume it's meant for the government. And you've drawn my attention to a series of bullet points he's made called the issues, points 1 to 19, which, when I read, aren't particularly flattering of the Wellington City Council, but I'm thinking you could just about extrapolate all over local government in New Zealand. Do you want to take me through them?
Yes. So the Crown Observer has done two reports. One to the minister that was published on Friday and was reported in the media, but he also has done a report to the council and councillors,
Right.
and that's much more focused around how he can help us sort out our issues. And in there, he's listed the issues, he's listed his concerns, especially about our long-term plan, but also his concerns around our governance and how it's been working quite poorly. I think you're right that there's a list of things that would apply to many councils about potential bias, about confusion by councillors about what's really happening and what do reports really say. There's a concern about whether or not the reports are biased or not, and also about how the minority around the council, and every council has a minority, how they get to have their say and have some influence and insight. Because majority rules, it's democracy, but the minority voice is also important.
Absolutely. But the of the things that are mentioned by the Crown Observer, what I found intriguing, Tony, was that I'll just get it for a moment. Um, Essentially, if I read 1 to 19 correctly, it essentially says that the chance for elected officials to be able to influence the council agenda are very slim, and that the process is essentially run by the recommendations coming out from senior council managers. Have I got that right?
Yes, I think that's the balance is wrong in our council, and that's what he's found. He's noted that often we get too much information that's too late, and that could apply to many councils. But he's also says that one of the key things is that the officer's recommendations have a sort of virtual motion status under standing orders.
Yeah,
In other words, under our standing orders, the officers write the recommendation, and by default, that is the recommendation of council,
yeah.
unless we make moves to change it. And that's a very strong influence about getting the balance right about what is recommended. It also gives officers the right to sort of miss stuff as well, because often it's the information that's not there, it's the qualifier that's not there. And if
Correct.
you look at a lot of council meetings, often councils add conditions to what the officers have recommended just to make sure it's right for whatever the issue is.
And just on that, though, I mean, that's a criticism you could make of local government in New Zealand, which is what on you've got one source of information, which is the council management,
Mm.
and one recommendation, which is from the council management. I mean, you're not privy as the people who are making the decision, Tony, to know what the qualifiers are, as you say, nor even what the dissenting information might be that has been rejected by those council managers and putting forward that recommendation. I mean,
Yep.
essentially, there's no opportunity for you to question, except if you know something more than the council staff tell you, A, but B also if you're going to be frankly bullheaded about it. And therefore, I think a lot of councillors in New Zealand feel intimidated in challenging officers' advice because one, they're not sure they know as much as the officers who've promoted it, but two, they don't want to look like, well, frankly, they're rebels, like you, Tony.
Look, I've been told again and again that my role is governance. I'm to sit there and sort of thumbs up, thumbs down on what's presented before me, like some sort of high-minded priest. And when I go and dig into some of the issues I've dug into, speed management, the bike rack, these stories that have come out of Wellington City, I'm told that you shouldn't get into the detail by some officers and by some councillors. That's not my role, yet it's actually only that digging. And sometimes the digging is done by the public and they contact me and other councillors, and the public seem to sometimes find out stuff or point out points of view about what's happening, even legally. That's been very, very helpful. But you're right that by default, we're expected to, I don't know, it's not rubber stamping, but sometimes it feels like it is rubber stamping what the officers say.
Of course it's right, but it is, and that's what you're expected to do. Can I give an example of this, though, and this is why local government gets it so wrong on this issue. The lead story at the moment on Radio New Zealand News is the story, I don't know if you've caught up with it, Tony, of the 11-year-old girl, an autistic girl in Hamilton.
It's a terrible story.
Oh, it's just incredible. I mean, you just got to read. Anyhow, for those who haven't caught it, it is. An 11-year-old autistic girl is wandering the streets, and she is mistaken for a 20-year-old woman who's missing with a mental health condition. I don't know how you mistake an 11-year-old and a 20-year-old, but there you go. The 11-year-old autistic girl is then handcuffed, taken to a mental health facility, and applied with antipsychotic drugs. And now, the Prime Minister this morning is saying, how dreadful this is, and so is the Minister of Mental Health, and he's not ruling out the Prime Minister that head will roll at Health New Zealand over this particular incident. But in many ways, the Prime Minister could be told, couldn't he, by health officials, this has nothing to do with you. This is detail at the end of the day.
It's operational.
Exactly. You just give us the budget. We determine how we're going to spend it. And we would all regard that as absurd. So the central government doesn't do it, Tony. Why does local government feel that it has new rules that apply to it?
Look, running this country in democracy is become quite fraught. And I think over the last decade, people feel they've lost control. And that means democracy is not working. And that's where you're getting so many people being angry. In the Crown Observer's report, there's a statement that says that council doesn't understand how things are. Councillors have trouble understanding why the council's not being effective. And I can say, well, it doesn't count me, because we're not effective because we don't have enough of a say about how things are put together. Or when the majority does have the say, they're out of touch, and there's very few ways, and this is where the minority is important. There's very few ways that if you're going off track, to get back on track. And there seems to be fewer ways in local government even in central government.